Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we continue following the emotional love story between Hoài Ca and Hùng, two people who have gone through countless storms, misunderstandings, and deep wounds of the heart. As you all know, Hung's mother, the woman who once filled their past with tears, has suddenly returned. She says she wants to make amends, to atone for her mistakes from years ago. But can a late apology truly erase the scars of the past? Meanwhile, Hoài Ca, after a long time of treatment in the hospital, has finally come home. Her face still shows signs of exhaustion, yet in her eyes shines a glimmer of hope for a warm home, a new beginning. But what she doesn't know is that Hung's mother is closer than she thinks, and the fateful encounter between these two women may change everything. Will Hung and Hoài Ca reunite under these circumstances? And when the three of them, Hung, Hoài Ca, and Hung's mother, finally stand face to face, will love, family, and forgiveness heal the pain of the past, or ignite it once again? Let's dive into today's episode to see what happens next. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment to tell me your thoughts. After spending more than a week in the city with her son for treatment, Hoài Ca decided to return to her little house nestled in the middle of the Tangerine Garden, a place where just stepping through the gate, the scent of earth, leaves, and sunlight could instantly soothe the soul. The hospital life, with its smell of disinfectant and the constant hum of machines, had made her feel suffocated. Now, back in her hometown, all she wanted was to take a deep breath of that familiar countryside air, the scent that existed nowhere else but here. Her son, little Tony, just over 2 years old, was still at the hospital, learning to speak with his therapist. He was lively, eager to learn, and every time the teacher helped him pronounce a new word, his tiny eyes would sparkle with focus. Thinking of that, a soft smile appeared on Hoài Ca's lips. While her son was in class all day, she took the chance to visit home, to tidy the yard, check the vegetable beds, and pick a few ripe tangerines to bring back for Tony, a small gift from the countryside. The noon sunlight poured gently through the branches, like honey dripping over clusters of golden fruit. Dewdrops still lingered on the leaves, glistening like crystals. She lifted a branch, touching the cool, firm skin of each tangerine, their peels plump and golden, the fragrance sweet and calm, blending with the earthy scent left behind by last night's rain. It was the smell of peace itself. Hoài Ca picked the biggest tangerine, peeled off the thin skin carefully. A faint citrus oil clung to her fingertips. The sweet and sour taste melted on her tongue, and she smiled, just for a moment. But that smile faded quickly, leaving behind a quiet ache in her chest. She looked up at the vast orange grove before her, so beautiful, so alive, yet somehow unbearably lonely. Her steps slowed as she walked along the moss-covered bamboo fence, running her fingers over the rough trunks where her mother used to hang clothes to dry, where little Tony once toddled around learning to walk. The hammock under the grapefruit tree still swayed gently in the wind, its ropes worn, its fabric faded, yet the sight of it made her eyes sting. She stopped at the porch, sighed softly, and took her phone from her pocket. The screen lit up, connecting, blinking for a few seconds, then silence. She called again. No answer. The busy tone echoed a few times, then ended. Staring at the blank screen, her gaze dimmed, brows furrowing slightly. "I wonder where Mom went," she murmured under her breath. her voice breaking the stillness. Maybe she's at the market selling sweet potatoes again. A gentle breeze passed through, carrying the scent of tangerine leaves and faint smoke from a distant kitchen. The crowing of roosters echoed down the lane, dogs barked somewhere nearby, and the tinkling bell of a street vendor's cart rang faintly. Those familiar sounds painted a simple picture of rural life, warm, yet quietly melancholic. Hoài Ca stood silently in the middle of the yard, letting the wind play with her hair. Golden sunlight rested on her shoulders, and a few dry leaves scattered across the old brick floor. Everything was familiar, yet it all felt empty, missing the warmth of those she loved. She looked down at her hands, calloused from caring for her son, from tending the garden, and clenched them gently, as if trying to hold on to a fragment of peace in the stillness of life. The breeze continued to dance through the orchard, rustling the leaves softly. And amid that serene afternoon, there was only Hoài Ca, small and quiet, standing alone in a golden tangerine garden at harvest time. The sound of a motorbike echoed outside the gate, blending with the soft rustle of wind through the tangerine trees. Hoài Ca startled slightly and turned around. The familiar silhouette stopping at the porch made her heart skip a beat. It was Du, the man who was once her husband, and the biological father of little Tony. His shirt was still dusty from the road, his forehead dotted with sweat, traces of a long day's work. He had just finished a delivery when he heard from Hùng that Tony was undergoing speech therapy at the hospital. Without hesitation, he came over to visit. His eyes flickered with hesitation, as though he feared his presence might make things awkward. But Hoài Ca remained calm, her voice soft as she invited him inside. They sat at the old wooden table on the porch, the same spot that once hosted warm family meals. On the table, a cup of green tea still steamed gently, thin wisps rising between the pauses of their uneasy silence. Du looked around, every corner of the house, every familiar object, still the same, yet missing something: laughter, warmth, the sense of togetherness that once filled this place. His gaze dropped. "I heard from Hùng that Tony still can't speak," he finally said, voice low and heavy. "I've been worried. No matter what, he's still my son." Hoài Ca slowly set her cup down, lifting her eyes to meet his. Her voice was calm but steady, not cold, not bitter, simply the tone of a mother who had learned to stand strong after heartbreak. "Everything's being taken care of, Hùng, and I can handle it. You don't need to worry." Du fell silent. Regret and guilt flickered in his eyes. Then, after a moment, he pulled a small folded stack of cash from his pocket and placed it gently into her hands. "I know it's been hard for you. I haven't been here, so at least let me do something for our son." Hoài Ca looked down at the money, silent for a while. She knew it wasn't about the amount. It was the sincerity of a father, late but real. After a moment's thought, she kept only a small portion and gently pushed the rest back toward him. "Keep it. I can manage. Just come see him when you can. That's enough." The air grew still again, but the tension was gone. They talked for a long time about Tony, about his therapy, about the way he practiced holding a pencil, how he giggled during lessons. Sometimes they laughed quietly, sharing stories of the little boy's mischief. Du's tone softened, his gaze gentler than before, and Hoài Ca, for once, didn't guard herself anymore. In the end, they both agreed Tony didn't need to be pressured. What mattered wasn't whether he spoke early or late, but that he grew up happy, healthy, and surrounded by love and patience. Outside, the wind picked up again, shaking loose a few golden tangerine petals that drifted down to the porch. Two people who had once broken apart now sat side by side in quiet peace, sharing the same worry for their child, as if, in that brief moment, all resentment had faded away, leaving only love. ChatGPT to NOI. Late in the afternoon, the last rays of sunlight lingered on the tangerine trees. From the end of the lane came the rattling sound of a bicycle, carrying with it the earthy scent of the fields and the faint smoke of cooking fires. Mother was coming home from the market, a basket of freshly dug sweet potatoes in hand, soil still clinging to their skins. Her blouse was dusted with dirt, but her face, as always, shone with a gentle smile. "Staying home all day gets boring," she said with a laugh. "So I went out to dig a few potatoes to sell, just for fun." Hoài Ca hurried over to take the basket from her. The warmth of the soil lingered on her palms, trembling slightly as she held it. The smell of fresh potatoes mixed with dried straw filled the air, bringing a simple, homely comfort. Together, mother and daughter crouched down, brushing dirt off each potato, arranging them neatly in a bamboo tray. The golden light of sunset streamed through the porch, casting two overlapping shadows, one old, one young, side by side in quiet peace. Inside the kitchen, Hoài Ca lit the fire. The wood crackled softly, flames flickering against their faces. Mother sat peeling potatoes while Hoài Ca fried small batches in a pan, the rich, buttery aroma spreading through the old kitchen, mingling with thin curls of smoke. When the potatoes turned perfectly golden, they sat together on the porch. The evening breeze stirred the hem of Mother's blouse as they shared a plate of crispy, fragrant slices, sweet, hot, and golden like the sunset itself. Mother ate slowly, smiling as she watched her daughter talk animatedly about Tony. How he'd gotten used to his speech therapist, no longer cried during lessons, and even learned to put away his toys and notebooks like a grown-up. Her eyes shimmered with tears, voice trembling softly under the orange glow of dusk. "If you're free this weekend, bring him home, will you? I miss that boy so much. I even dream of him calling Grandma every night." Hoài Ca smiled and nodded gently. Outside, the crickets began their evening song, blending with the soft crackle of burning wood, a familiar lullaby of home. The scent of fried potatoes drifted through the kitchen, sinking into the old brick floor, into every warm breath they shared. No grand words, no big gestures, just that simple moment. And the little house in the tangerine garden felt warmer than ever. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, Hoài Ca's mother was already up, busy carrying her baskets of sweet potatoes to the market. Each potato, still clinging to bits of soil and roots, was neatly arranged in her old bamboo baskets. Her blouse was faded from years of wear, but her steps remained quick and steady, the same as they had been for decades. The marketplace was bustling that day. Buyers and sellers filled the air with chatter, laughter, and the familiar hoarse calls of vendors. She sat quietly in her usual corner, hands moving deftly as she weighed the potatoes. A gentle smile never left her lips. She was content. The weather was fair and prices were good. That was enough to make her day feel light. By late afternoon, As the sun dipped behind the bamboo groves, she carried home the few unsold potatoes. The country road was still damp from last night's rain, and the scent of earth, straw, and distant cooking fires mingled into the comforting fragrance of home. But as she reached the gate, she froze. A stranger was standing there. A thin woman, dressed simply, her face gaunt and weathered by sun and time. In the fading light, her eyes seemed deep and haunted, a mix of guilt, sorrow, and fear. The woman spoke first, her voice trembling but clear. I want to see Hoài Ca. I'm Hung's mother." The words hit like a quiet thunderclap. Hoài Ca's mother stood still, stunned. The basket slipped slightly from her grasp, a few potatoes tumbling to the ground, but she didn't even notice. The wind rustled the tangerine leaves, silence hung thick in the air. Finally, she took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Come inside. It's windy out here," she said softly. The two women stepped into the house. The air carried faint traces of last night's cooking, smoke, and fried sweet potatoes. They sat facing each other at the old wooden table, the atmosphere heavy, distant, as though a wall of unspoken memory stood between them. After a long pause, the stranger finally spoke, her voice hoarse and weary. "I know I was wrong. I left 6 months ago, left my son with debts and shame. Now, I just want to buy back the old house, to apologize to my children, and ask for forgiveness." Her voice broke mid-sentence. She bowed her head, tears falling onto the table, leaving dark stains on the old wood. "I haven't had the courage to face Hung yet. Not until I can buy the house back, then I'll be able to look him in the eye." Hoài Ca's mother said nothing for a while. The evening light filtered through the window, illuminating the woman's worn face, tired, sincere, and full of pain. Finally, she nodded slowly, her voice warm and steady. "Everyone makes mistakes, but not everyone has the courage to return and admit them. If your remorse is real, then it's not too late to start again." The woman reached across the table, clutching her hand, her fingers frail and trembling. "Please, don't tell Hung I'm back yet. I'm afraid he'll avoid me. I'll come again, this weekend." The room fell silent, the only sound coming from the cicadas outside, singing in the tangerine grove. A soft, aching melody that spoke the words neither woman could say aloud. As the figure of the woman disappeared beyond the tangerine fence, her footsteps faded, blending into the whisper of the evening wind. The little house fell silent once more, only the sound of the breeze brushing against the roof tiles, and the last light of sunset stretching softly across the porch. Hoài Ca's foster mother remained seated by the doorway, her distant gaze fixed on the dusty road where the stranger's footprints still lingered. On the table, a cup of tea had long gone cold, its thin wisp of steam dissolving into the air, like the quiet sigh of thoughts left unspoken. In the garden, tangerine leaves drifted down, spinning gently in the wind. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the branches, glinting off her silver-streaked hair, warm, yet heavy with melancholy. She sat there for a long while, listening to the slow rhythm of time itself. Everything around her seemed to pause, leaving only the faint echo of her own thoughts. She sighed softly, her eyes fixed on the dusty path where the woman had vanished. "I wonder if she's truly remorseful. I just hope everyone can find peace this time." Her words came out barely above a whisper, more a thought spoken to herself than an answer. The evening wind swept through again, rustling the tangerine branches, filling the air with a gentle sound like the murmur of the earth itself. The scent of ripe fruit spread across the garden, sweet, tender, and laced with sadness. In the distance, the sunset painted the grove in shades of red and gold, her shadow stretching long across the old brick courtyard. It felt as if a new chapter was quietly waiting to begin. One where the past, the mistakes, and the forgiveness yet to come would finally meet. Where wounds once buried might be touched again, not to reopen, but to heal. Next episode, when Hung returns, will he have the strength to face the mother who once broke his heart? And within that heart, is there still a place for forgiveness?
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa tới với mọi người video tiếp theo về câu chuyện của Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng nha mọi người. Mình đưa đến tình tiết tiếp theo khi mà mẹ Hùng quay trở lại và gặp Hoài Ca, liệu rằng bà ta đã đang có thực sự thay đổi hay không? Hay chỉ là muốn lừa gạt Hoài Ca thôi. Mọi người nếu như mà xem video có ý kiến thì hãy để lại ý kiến ở phần bình luận mọi người nhé. Đừng quên ủng hộ cho kênh của mình nha. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều. Mình vẫn đang cố gắng để ra video đều, mọi người nhớ ủng hộ cho kênh mình nha.